Jeff? Jeff, what county are you out of?
I'm going to watch this today.
Okay.
Because I don't know what's taking me.
Well, is it close enough to 7 o'clock?
It is 7.
Here we go then. So I asked you to look at those videos last week, and the one in particular was the one on classrooms and that led toward a positive learning environment. And I hope you had a chance to look at those. What were some of the highlights from those schools out of England, and what were the characteristics or the traits that they were trying to compare one to the other? Anybody remember any of that?
They were comparing the use of lots of color and stimulation and lots of kid work, and whether or not that was actually overstimulation for the students, and how it affected their behavior.
Let me ask you this. How many of y'all function in the K-8 parameter?
I do.
I do.
Okay, do you think that is possible, that you can overstimulate the real young ones who were just developing their speech and language patterns just by all that stuff going on?
I think so.
Well, you would think there is some degree of overexposure or whatever, but you could definitely tell the difference between the first school and then the second model, where the walls were white, very little student work and stuff like that. What do you think, if you have your own family, what grabs the attention of your children when you're out and about? I mean, do they run up and look at a tree, or do they focus on colors, things that move, things that they can interact with? What do you think?
I think it's, I have a bunch of nephews, but I was going to go back to the study about, I think it was the Kaiser Foundation did on the childhood brain, especially ages 0 to 2 in television.
Right.
And just that rapid changing of pictures, the mind can't focus and develop and understand what's happening in that moment. And then it's off to another.
So they're jumping around and flicking around, and it's pulling in their senses too quickly for them to completely process. Mm-hmm. And you do understand, up till about age 25, the last part of your brain to truly, totally develop is the frontal lobe. Reasoning, that's why more people do stupid stuff in their 20s and their teens, then hopefully they acquire some knowledge as how to function. Luke, you're talking about overexposure, even your nephews and stuff like that. Do you, when you're out with them or off of the rest of you, have we gotten too connected when you see a 4 or 5-year-old with a handheld device, and they're going to end up getting carpal tunnel in their thumbs. Maybe not now, but in 10 years they will.
Well, being that I was born in the 80s and raised in the 90s, television was kind of the babysitter joke. You know, I go watch some TV.
That's exactly right.
And, you know, now you've got this thing.
Yes, sir.
And it's just one of those things where you got parents that you see them, you know, it's like out at a restaurant, the kid's being a kid, he's talking, he's chatting, they'll throw him the phone and let him watch, you know, Daniel Tiger or whatever.
I find it amazing that two adults can go out for lunch, dinner, whatever, and they're both sitting there messing with their smartphones, and there's no conversation across the table. That's just wrong.
Well, if it's modeling of relationship, then, you know, their kids sitting there have nothing to take from it. I mean,
that's true. They see what they see. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so we saw those two different schools, and then that one school wanted to move itself totally to an outside school arena, like one of those outward bound kind of activities where they learn and function in the outdoors, and there was more outdoor stuff than indoor stuff. Do you think, and then again, they talked about lighting, and I think a lot of research has showed us that those incandescent 4 and 8 foot bulbs are bad for any kind of learning, reading, or they're just overall bad in general. And my guess is a lot of you are still teaching like that. Some of you may have a different type of lighting system using natural light or different types of light bulbs to produce light in your classroom. Do you think that has an effect on students? The lighting aspect of it.
I know I have a classroom with two really, almost an entire wall of windows.
Okay.
We can't open them early in the morning because you can't see, we're blinded. But by 9 o'clock, if I open those blinds, it's an uplifting kind of thing when the sun comes in.
Do you remember when that school was built, Kim?
This section is fairly new. It's been in the last 15 years.
Okay.
The older part of our school has very small windows that are placed in places designed where you actually couldn't see outside because it would have been a distraction.
Right. And now they realize that there's more natural light that can be brought into a classroom is how they truly orient the school building in relationship to the sunrise and sunset. Gather as much sunlight during the day. That is true. Look at your media centers, libraries that are 2-story that have all those lights around at the upper level to pull in that natural light. That they've done a lot with light study. Okay. Did you pick up on the fact about boys versus girls at that young age, that boys, or I think this may be, I've done some research. Anybody heard of a neurocognitive, I'm going to try it one more time. A cognitive, thank you, doctor, who studies children and their nerve and wave patterns. This guy's name is Fritz Meingert, Mengert. He's done a lot of research. He's currently a professor emeritus at UNC Chapel Hill, and he did a lot of studies on elementary kids, and he focused on the difference between learning patterns of boys and girls. Okay. Now, there are a lot of schools that put a lot of value in North Carolina in his work because of what children are exposed to, such as boys traditionally have a hard time entering to the arena with hopping, jumping, skipping, and stuff like that. And sometimes you may notice that, and sometimes you may not. They get overstimulated with stuff hanging down from the ceiling or stuff on the walls. They cannot focus on their schoolwork versus being overexposed to what one of you said, the distractions as to what's going on in the world. Have you ever observed elementary kids walking down a hallway, and while we have now gotten to the plan where we put certain colored tiles either on two sides of the hallway or just one certain tile in the center. And that's to keep them off walking along the wall and touching the walls. For the next couple of days, especially at the elementary school, you watch the boys, and they'll walk down the wall, but they will keep in touch with the wall. That's how they function in that big open spaces. Girls don't need that hand-on, get me from A to B kind of experience. But the boys especially will go down the hallway and they'll just rub the wall as they walk. Why do you think the bottom part of the walls in an elementary school especially are painted with a shiny coating and the upper levels are painted with a flat? And that's to reduce the dirt from those kids walking down the hallway and just rubbing their hands. My mother did a lot of research in that, just observing kids and talking to them and things like that. And like I said, there are a lot of schools that put a lot of emphasis on having teachers develop their classrooms with stuff, too much stuff on the walls. And I realize, I think it's still a good thing to put students' work up and stuff like that. But he's talking about keeping too much stuff up on the walls, and heaven forbid stuff that hangs down and is moving. That just drives those young ones crazy. It's something, if you haven't looked up any of his work, you might want to Google his name. But he does deal with the cognitive part of an elementary child and what they do or don't expose to. All right. Next thing, we had the videos, and I sent out Kim's work on how to do a reference page. Let me see if I can set this thing on fire. Let's do this one. All right, do y'all see that? Oh, Lord, where'd that go? Okay, it's back. Do you see using the reference tab in Microsoft Word? Okay, and basically, if you'll just go down the document left, and of course I send it to you, I ask you to print it off. You might want to start messing with that, especially if you have a Mac or if you have a PC, but I think that's going to get you started in how to do a lot of work fairly quickly as you set up your reference page and how to put it back into your document. I'll let you mess with that this week, and then if you have any questions, we'll bounce it back off of Kim, but she did an excellent job laying this out for us. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, let's see, is that still up there? The artifact quick reference. Okay, so do you see that document?
Because he's already out there.
What?
Not yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Well, that's not good. Still not with me? Not there?
No, it's still showing the other one.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Let me open the other one, and then I'll close it. All right. Now let's go back to this. How about it now?
Nope.
No.
Oh, that would be my luck. You're okay. It says my screen sharing is paused. What does that mean? Let's see if I can resume share. No? How about a new share? Okay, let's see if that does it. Yeah, let's give it a whirl.
There it's now.
It's the,
Okay. Woohoo! Now, this is DN 1.0. I have not been given DN 2.0 yet. So there may be some changes based on how this new prompt was rolled out, and I believe input of students caused this document to be retweaked. I want you to look at, right now, since we're in 601, I want you to look at the app cell. Far left, the very first section. Now, in your writing, you should have done some research on the 4 and others. I noticed that a lot of you did others, which is great. Some data snapshots that you have started looking at, comparing your school report card, EOC or EOG, and then the composite scores on EVOS. Now, at some point in time in your document that you will load over to TaskStream, you will be able to plug up some email, the PLC permission to your principal and his or her response back. You'll have a couple of agendas. You'll have minutes from those 2 or 3 meetings. And then sometimes people just go overboard to show pictures of a PLC meeting. I don't know how far you want to go, but you definitely need the permission, a couple of agendas, and a couple of sets of minutes. Then you get down to looking at the test scores where you have the most, what I would call, pressing needs. What needs your help the most? And they have to be validated test scores, and they also have to be something where you can show improvement if you were going to implement this process. Most of you would end up doing something that can be evaluated, such as math, language arts, and stuff like that. Do not get tied up in something that they want you to look at about improving behaviors, school climate, and all this other stuff, because that's almost going to be impossible to measure. You're going to end up having to do a bunch of surveys, teacher interviews, and it's just, you need to deal with crunching numbers. What are some of you have already narrowed down based on your writings what you plan to look at? Just throw a few out for the group. What are some of the things that you think are your validated, the most pressing needs at your school?
Our EOG math scores.
EOG math, that's an excellent one, Luke.
Closing the achievement gap between African Americans and Hispanics and through EOG 3 through 5th grade.
Okay, now, that's a big project. Have you got somebody at the school that can crunch those numbers and separate them?
Yes, we separated them through EVOS, and we also separated them through the scores that we already had in the building.
Okay.
And we're able to break it down through the demographics.
Okay, that's excellent.
It is the NC Ready accountability
The model.
breakdown. Yeah.
Okay, I see. Thank you, Danielle. Now, the next step in part C is you got Marzano, Darling Hammond, and Todd Whitaker. Those are the leading gurus in taking best practices as to what they would suggest how you to apply the needs that you're presenting to work on. I'm going to pull up some research abstracts and things like that, and that will move you further down the list. Now, here's this next one that's even interesting, and it requires very little work on your part. What you need to start doing in APSEL is to keep up some type of monthly journal. And you're going to start off in your written journal with the date, what you're working on, whether it was an easy task or a hard task, and you will plug that into your internship journal. That's something I think is still in place, but you need, as you go through this program in 5 semesters, there will be activities that you do that will be easy, and some of these activities will be difficult. And it's okay to talk about both of them and how you worked around the different difficult parts as you move through the process. And then the last part, in E, you put up an action plan or a graphic organizer, and you're going to tell us what you plan to do and how you're going to evaluate whether it's successful or not successful. So this is when I'm looking at a student's work, not only am I looking at the far left column as to where you should be pulling your data from, I'm looking at the far right column where you're putting up stuff to show me that you did what you said you would do in the center column. Does that make any sense?
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's a cheat sheet for me to see if you put your work like and how and where it was supposed to be, and then you just go through and read the document, and then you go back and say, okay, did they do this? Did they do this? Did they do that? It's a real simple fix. I don't know for sure when I get 2.0 if it's going to change a lot. I don't know that it can, but there may be some tweaks. Now, all of this was in one complete document. So you have everything for all of those processes. You got the APSL, you got the APTEL, then you got the OMA, and we hop up to, what was that bottom one that's continued to the next top? Let's see here.
Sit.
The SIT, okay, hold up. You got that, the OMA, the CAP, and the SIAP. That is correct. So you've got everything. And that will sort of give you an idea about the focus that you should be working on. Now, did I ever tell y'all to keep up with, since you're going through this process, each one of these in sequence at a time? I did tell you you're going to do the APSL, then the APTEL, and then in that sequence. One of these or several of these will require you to do teacher interviews, will have you do some walkthroughs in classrooms, things like that. You might want to see, this is the one right there where you have walkthrough data. You're going to have a best practice checklist where you have to go through and see what's going on in the classroom and things like that. I don't think you're going to be working on that one during the summer, but it could come up in the fall depending on your sequence. And that's the OMA. You'll do I think the APTEL is next, and then the OMA comes third. And that will line itself up with what you're doing in the fall. The sequence that is laid out in the handbook is the one that you're going to follow. So, focus. I looked through it all. And then here's the last thing on the SIAP. Do you see what I'm pointing at here? Okay, you'll notice that the SIAP is a combination of all of them in one. Like in the SIAP 6A, it goes back and compares to 4A, 4B, and 4C. Nothing new, just pulling those three things together. And then you're going to do the data snapshot and then the artifact. So in the SIAP, you're not really inventing something new. You're just pulling it all together from your other activities that you have done.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, you may.
I just want clarification.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm looking at APSL, the first one. So you're saying, as a cheat sheet, the references part is what we should be doing. The middle is like the data snapshots, and the artifacts is what's going into TaskScreen.
That is correct. We used to put it all in the same thing, Danielle. But now and this is why. The artifacts prove to DPI. Why am I touching the screen? That was stupid. Like I could make it happen. The artifacts is what supports your work that goes to DPI, and that's why it goes on to TaskStream, and they are the ones granting you your license. Okay, they don't need to see all this other stuff. They just want to see that you did it, and that supports your application for a license.
Okay. All right, one more question.
Go right ahead.
So when we finish our task, the rough drafts, we put them in discussion board, in the discussion board.
Correct.
We do our peer reviews. We make our corrections. Do we then go to TaskScreen immediately after, or what do we do after that, after the peer review?
Yes. See, I'm taking myself out of my role, which is just the instructor for this classroom, into a clinical coach role.
Okay.
Many of you have sat down with your clinical coach, and they've told you their role and what they do in getting your stuff moved over to TaskStream.
Okay.
I know a couple of you have.
Yes.
Okay, if you don't mind me asking, Danielle, who and what did they say?
He is Dr. Hamilton, but I have to go back in my notes. I have so much going on.
I understand. But he's told you where you put what you put.
Yes.
And I'm assuming the artifact part, he's telling you will go in some kind of, I don't know if it's a portfolio or a folio that's in TaskStream.
Yeah, something like that.
See, I'm talking about something I can't see.
Okay.
I can't see anything in TaskStream. And hopefully they'll get that part fixed sometime soon That way I can sort of continue that part of the conversation. Say, your part for Absol 1A goes here, goes here, goes here. I can only rely on Dr. Hamilton telling you that, and it sounds like he already has.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, good questions. Okay, so I've talked to you about Fritz Meingert, interesting character. He was freelancing somewhere up north, and then he came down here and got a full professorship and is now emeritus at Chapel Hill. But all of his study on elementary kids, how they function, their metacognition, what they see, what they think, what they do, it's interesting work. And just observe elementary kids from afar as they're going down the hallway and they're just walking. That's all they're doing. Watch and see what they do. Or earlier on in the school year, let's say in August, September, October, what they do in a classroom when they're just sort of not doing their work, but they're looking around. It's like overstimulation. I don't know if going to bland colors and nothing up on the walls is too far from my thinking. And I don't know why any of those people in England, they went to Greece or there was another country, why they went there versus something in an American school, but they chose to go in that direction. And from what I gather, that's what they think is the right way to learn. I'm not sure about that one. I will tell you this. How many are you familiar with the open classroom model at the elementary level?
No.
Is that the one where you could see from like one end of the school to the next?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, my elementary school was set up that way.
How'd that work out for you, Luke?
Well, I think I had to learn a lot on my own. I like to wave at my friends and see what they were doing.
I was a principal of a school where they had these pods, and these pods were open to 4 classrooms at a pop. Well, that went on for about 2 years, and then the next thing that happened is they put up these folding walls. It was a great idea, but I don't think they did enough research to show good or bad. Like you said, it's just too much going on that you could focus on what you and your teacher was working on.
There's no telling how much money was spent.
You know it.
New walls.
Now, I don't want to tell you my age, but you know, a lot of things when they come out with a new idea and they want to implement it, you know, the experienced teachers will say, well, we'll try this for a couple of years, but they'll put this back up. And it usually happens that way.
We do an after-school tutorial program at my school. And of course, you know, we have all the acronyms, Title I, Equity Plus, if they even still have that, all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And during the after-school tutorial program, it's like the media center is like, it's sectioned off or partitioned in like the 4 different areas.
Right.
You have 3rd grade, 4th grade, and 5th grade. And I must have ADD too, because I was like, what in the ham sandwich hallelujah is going on? Like, I can't focus. It's too much stimuli.
Right. It really, that didn't work out well at all.
No.
Okay. Now, do y'all keep up with the news? Do you think as administrators or teachers, we are held to a higher standard?
I definitely think so.
You have hit that nail on the head. There are currently getting ready to be 3 vacancies that I know of in this state. You got an assistant principal out of Surrey Central High School in Surrey County. Was going to school drunk and some controlled substances. That's what kicked his problem. I mean, he hit a building, some other stuff on the way to school, and that's a felony charge. The drug paraphernalia. I know it sounds bad. It sounds bad when I use the phrase, you know, just getting a DWI is not a big deal. Well, it is a big deal, but, you know, we are held to a higher standard. He was going to work gassed. And then the principal from Weddington High School down in, below Charlotte, in Union County, bless that little lady's heart, her first principalship, she overextended her mileage. Let's see, what would you call that? She falsified the data.
Yeah.
She also got suspended, but since it was state funds for reimbursement, that's also a felony. And then the last one up in the mountains on the other side of Buncombe County, you got my man from Madison who got a DWI over the weekend, superintendent. And I'm thinking, even though that's only a misdemeanor, it's not a felony, but those people, if you look at it in terms of this, the community will allow, and somebody is near a fire station. That's good. The community will only allow certain things to go on. What a community expects in Charlotte is completely different from what a community in Madison County will accept. Would you agree to that? I would.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll also say though, because we had a situation in the county that I was born and raised in where the principal was pulled over for driving erratic, I'll say, because he did not blow a high enough level
Okay.
to get the DWI, but he had an open container as well in the car.
Oh,
And he was able to stall long enough to get a low enough .07,
okay.
but he went on medical. There's a big legal. He's muddled the legal waters now to say, can you remove him from his position? Can you remove him from the school system? But, my take on it is, if the community is trusting you with their kids, you're going to be held to a higher standard, and you should hold yourself to a higher standard. That's my take on it.
I'm not going to argue.
How are you going to discipline a kid or talk to a kid about drugs and alcohol? What are you going to say to him? Oh, I blew a .07.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your moral standing there?
Pretty much, Luke. You hit the neck. Now, you do understand how the law enforcement agency works in relationship to the school board, okay?
Oh, yes, sir.
Look, if you get suspended by the board and they think they have a grace period to do their own investigation before it flips over to a law enforcement, that's why you can be suspended up for 90 days with pay. And sometimes it will start off suspended with pay, and then they'll flip it over to without pay. By state statute in this state, within the 90 days, your school board has got to make a decision. They either have to bring you back in that job or some other job, or they need to start dismissal proceedings. Now, in North Carolina, as we've already talked about, holding ourselves to a higher standard, there are somewhere between 12 and 15 things that can get you fired. Okay? Keep in mind, the majority of the administrators in North Carolina are now working on either a 2 or a 4-year contract. They used to have tenure positions, but that went out with the batch back in, I want to say, 95 or 96. So I doubt there are any people out there who are tenured administrators. They're working either an AP or a principal on a 2 or 4-year contract. So that's how it's ended up. Again, I know you don't have a lot of free time, and I'm telling you to look up Fritz, but if you go to North Carolina General Statutes 115C, 5E, it will talk specifically to those things that can get you fired. I think one of them is hilarious because it's called the overthrow of the government. There's another one about not paying your state income tax. I mean, believe it or not, those are on the books, those things that can get you fired.
What was that?
Can you repeat the statute again?
It's General Statutes 115C-325E.
Okay.
Your principal probably will have a gray paperback school law book that comes out every year. It's about 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick, or you can just look it up online. 115C-325E. And it goes through, talks about the dismissal procedure. You get a hearing in front of a partial board, a full board, the superintendent. You can appeal their decision if you're not happy with it to your superior court in the county which you were suspended, and the things that they can fire you for. It's rather clear. And one of them is the catch-all. I was talking with a couple of teachers over the weekend about insubordination. That's the catch-all phrase that somebody will ask you to do something and either you don't do it or you don't do it in a timely manner. And that's really insubordination. That one's actually used quite a bit.
Mhm.
As they build a case against the teacher or administrator. A little strange, but not. So do a little work on the side. You will get to a section on one of these parts of this program where you look at school law and the things that can happen, good or bad, and what protections and rights you do have. Where did the General Assembly, didn't the teachers who had tenure get tenure back? The General Assembly took it away, and then I think they had to give it back because somewhere down the line.
I think that case came down that the tenure applies to those that already had it.
That's correct. No new tenure, but they couldn't take away the tenure that you
can't take away something that was given already
right
to them was the ruling.
And the purpose is, you're going to hear this phrase quite a bit. It's called a property interest.
Mhm.
And that's why they can suspend you, send you home, and still pay you, because they have basically taken nothing away from you. You're still getting paid. But if they flip it over to non-pay and they're still within that 90 days, they have taken something away and they're starting the process. And don't get all worked up. Very few school systems have an attorney that goes through that process. Most of the time they will hire, I think there are 3 or 4 firms out of Raleigh that do primary public school employment law. And I think they only charge $500 an hour from when they leave Raleigh to when they get to your school board meeting. They only charge $500 an hour. Yeah, get that joke. Because most of the local attorneys don't deal with school employment law. It's just not, there's not a lot of it going on.
Mhm.
But going back to you, Luke, we are held to a higher standard. We really, really are. There's no doubt about it. And of course, I keep thinking, now I can see the superintendent ride around at night, been somewhere and was gassed. But the AP going to school in the morning, and you know how they have those concrete things to keep you from hitting the building? I think he hit one of those as he was getting into a parking lot like a 7-Eleven or something like that. And I'm thinking, and you going to work in that condition? That's sad. It's just sad. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Those things happen. They really do. Okay. I'm going to send this out to you. I'm not going to swear that I did or didn't hit the record button. Then I'm going to I can't remember. I will tell you what videos to watch for a conversation next week. You're writing some of the things that y'all are talking about, and some of the things in your peer reviews and your the meetings. They're very insightful. I'm learning quite a bit about where you are and what you're exposed to. It's just y'all, everybody, from what I can tell, is real comfortable with working with your Zoom groups and stuff like that. It seems like things are going well, unless I'm missing something. Anything else? Okay, now this is our 7th class. I think we have one more before spring break. Yeah, we got one more, but that doesn't mean you stop writing. You keep up with your work. Those weeks that we don't meet, there's still weeks that you can work on stuff, and I want you to continue to do that. And if you've not had a positive response or a working relationship with your clinical coach, I need you to step forward and press that button and get totally involved. If that doesn't shake anything out of the tree, I know who to send an email or a concern to, because they're critical in this. from what we talk about in class, any current events and things like that, how I'm giving you information and how you are to do your work, and then where the clinical coach picks up and what he or she does, can only help you with the final product before it goes to the evaluator's desk. And that's the part that concerns me.
I have a question about the evaluator's desk.
Okay.
If we start submitting things into TaskStream now, will the evaluators go ahead and evaluate and then send it back to us now, or will they wait towards the end of the semester?
Okay. That's an excellent question, Danielle. We've had trouble in the past where the evaluators were sent work and they'd sit on it for 4-6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now, obviously, you know that's wrong.
Oh, yes.
The clock's ticking, and we want you to finish up on time as you get closer to the end of April and May. I think they're supposed to respond within 3 or so days, a turnaround time, a fairly quick turnaround time, because that's all these people are doing, are just reading and evaluating work. There's a quick turnaround time is number one, and the comments that you get back should be specific as to what you need to do to bump it up to a level of 3 or 4. Just not send it back and then say this needs to be reworked. That's not the way the program is designed.
Right. And when they do send it back, we'll be able to rework it and resubmit it through TaskStream.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you will be in. See, I don't know who your evaluators are, but your clinical coach does.
Mm-hmm.
So number 2, those two talk back and forth, and if they don't print what you need to work on, the clinical coach and the evaluator are supposed to make a connection, and that's when you either Zoom with your clinical coach or they email back and forth with very specific things you should work on, and then you resubmit it. That I understand there's no limit on resubmission, but in order for you to make any changes and get it back in the mix, it can't just sit there for weeks at a time.
Right.
You know that. And the only reason they've sort of stepped this process up with specifics is that's been a problem in the past. People get stuff and they just sit there and sit there and sit there. And then the students sort of wonder, well, what did I've done? Do I need to do this? Is everything fine? There's supposed to be a quicker turnaround time. And it started with your group this year, those in 601. Excellent question. And at any time, especially with Dr. Hamilton, if you have a situation where your stuff has been sitting for 2, 3, 4 days, definitely send him an email. Always send your clinical coach an email if your stuff is just sitting out there in space and no one's telling you about it. That's the way it's supposed to work. Again, you send it to TaskStream. I can't tell what they did or didn't do. It's in your clinical coach's hands. That's sort of sad. I'd like to sort of see what you're doing, but somehow or another, that's just the way the wall was built, and I'm not on that side.
Well, I think having that problem, I've emailed my clinical coach and trying to get with him. It still have not happened. I emailed him. He said we're going to Zoom and phone call. I have not heard anything from him.
Okay, let me ask you, Nick. I know who your clinical coach is, and I'm disappointed. I don't mind saying it out loud. One thing, if I'm telling the truth, I'm not going. First of all, I'm not going to lie. But if something's not right, I'm going to tell you it shouldn't be that way. I know yours, and that shouldn't be like it is. Tell me, in relationship to Eastern Standard Time, are we in the same time zone or not?
Same time zone.
Oh, that's wrong. I'm going to make a phone call tomorrow during the day, and I'm going to have this individual talk to your clinical coach.
Thank you.
I mean, we are in the 7th week of school.
I've even asked one of my team to try to get in touch with him for me, because I emailed him. He said he was going to get in touch with me last Saturday. I called. He said Friday, and then he emailed last minute, said he couldn't make it Friday. He said Saturday, and I called on Saturday, couldn't get a of him. Left voice message, and still right now, so I haven't heard anything.
Okay, I'm writing down what I'm going to do so I won't forget that one. But I will make the phone call to have this individual call yours.
Thank you.
It needs to take place. Hold up. I love this. Hold up. So, That's good. Thank you for pointing that out. I will take care of that. Okay?
Okay.
Anything else?
Due to the increase of criminal activity in your area, CE Security is paying.
Always somebody selling something. Okay. Well, unless something happens, I'll see. Don't y'all hate telemarketers? I just look over there and see who's calling, but that's the only way I could get the phone to stop ringing. Anyway, if I get 2.0, I'm going to roll this piece out plus the entire package. But I wanted you to have something in your hand for you to start looking at and then to go from there. Makes sense, I hope. But unless something happens, I will see all of you next Thursday at about 7. And the days, I'll take care of that for you without a doubt. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, guys. I'll see y'all next week.
See you next week. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night. All right.